Hello everybody, it's a Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to Book Reviews. So today we have this. A Case of Conscience by James Blish. Now, something to be said about, this is an older winner, 1959, which I guess makes it in the first five. So James Blish was an early critic of science fiction and a big believer that science fiction was literature. Kind of looked this up. I wanted to know a little bit more about him. He kind of led a personal crusade to hold science fiction to a higher standard, which, good for him. Good for him. And A Case of Conscience, I actually have seen mentioned in some other writing about science fiction as a great as a great attempt to talk about the anthropology and sociology of studying an alien race. So this is the 20th anniversary edition. So, and it was $1.25 when it was sold in 1979. Which, wait a minute, is that right? 1979. So this was sold the year I was born. This book is as old as I am. And when I was born, books cost $1.25 apparently, and well worth it at that. Now that being said, I'm actually probably paid about that for this. Now, okay, so science fiction has long been the prime exploring grounds for all kinds of ideas, for vaulting imagination, for the intelligent application of what is known to what may be, for cogent and revealing comment on our time, and religion, no less than science, is a large part of our time. This is the story of a dedicated man, a priest who was also a scientist, whose twin vocations confronted him with a moral problem, which proved him finally, and most of all, a courageous man, a first-class work of the imagination. Perhaps even better, it is unique. Now here's the thing. If you read all of the Hugo Award winners, what you will be struck by is how much oh, I can remember this book title. I can. It's that Heinlein book we talked about. What Heinlein books won this? But what about the Martian that teaches people to grok? I know this. Stranger in a Strange Land. How much of Stranger in a Strange Land you'll hear in this? And I can't tell you that Heinlein was inspired by this, but I can tell you that this came first. So, although not by much. So there may actually just be a temporal connection to them. But, Stranger to Strangeland, you're right, he went for double star like the year before this. So Stranger to Strangeland had to come during the 60s or something. I don't have a list in front of me or anything. I'm just shooting off the hip here. Sitting out in the screen house, downwind of a rotting corpse of a raccoon that I can smell every once in a while, and it's horrible. You didn't need to know that, but it's true. So anyway. Yeah, I thought my propane tank was leaking gas, and I was like, followed the smell, and was like, oh. But I live in the country, and, you know, I mean, animals, that's the thing that happens. Appropriate for this novel. So, the premise of this novel is that there is a planet full of very tall, lizard-looking aliens, and a group of men have been stationed there, and they are leaving, and one of them gives them an egg, like his offspring, as kind of an ambassadorial present for Earth. And they raise this child, and it becomes kind of this celebrity as being the only one of the species on Earth. And it can talk, it's intelligent, it's just also an incredibly tall lizard-looking creature. And it becomes this kind of symbol of everything that this priest who raised it kind of finds morally repugnant in kind of his personal philosophy. And so they're at this party held by this incredibly famous person, this party that's all about the exploration of kind of garish, you know, it's hedonism at its finest. So, let's go. Michaelis was sorry he had allowed himself and Louis aboard the Serpentine the moment he understood the construction of the second level, for he saw at once that he would have virtually no chance of seeing Egverches, that's the lizard child. Arrival. Fundamentally, the second level was divided by soundproof walls into a number of smaller parties, some of them only slightly drunker and more unorthodox than the cocktail party had been, but the rest running a broad spectrum of frenetic exoticism. He and Louis were carried. It's not that, it's Lou. It's he and Louis, I'm sure. Were carried completely around the course before he was able to figure out how to get the girl and himself safely off the Serpentine. And each time he was moved to attempt it, the train began to go faster in unpredictable spurts, producing a sensation rather like that of riding a roller coaster in the middle of the night. Nevertheless, they saw the only entrance that counted. Egverty emerged from the last gas bath standing in the head car of the Serpentine, and stepped out of the car under his own power. In the next 5 cars behind him, also standing, were 10 nearly identical young men in uniforms of black and lizard green, with silver piping, their arms folded, their expressions stern, their eyes straight ahead. "Greetings," Egverty said, with a deep bow, which his disproportionately small dinosaurian arms and hands made both comical and mocking. "Madame the Countess, I am delighted you are protected by many bad smells, but I have braved them all." The crowd applauded. The Countess' reply was lost in the noise, but evidently she had chided him for being naturally immune to smokes which would affect Earthmen, for he said promptly, with a trace of hurt in his voice, "I thought you might say that, but I'm grieved to be caught in the right. To the pure, all things are pure, however. Did you ever see such upstanding, unshaken young men?" He gestured at the 10. "But of course I cheated. I stopped their nostrils with filters, as Ulysses stopped his men's ears with wax to pass the sirens. My entourage will stand for anything. They think I am a genius." With the air of a conjurer, the Lithian produced a silver whistle, which seemed small in his hand, and blew into the thick air a white, warbling noise, which was utterly inadequate to the gesture which had preceded it. The 10 soldierly young men promptly melted. The forefront of the crowd gleefully towed the limp bodies, which took the abuse with lax indifference. "Drunk," Egverty said with fatherly disapproval. "Of course. Actually, I didn't stop their noses at all. I prevented their reticular formations from reporting the Countess's smokes to their brains until I gave the cue. Now they have gotten all the messages at once. Isn't it disgraceful? Madame, please have them removed. Such dissoluteness embarrasses me. I shall have to institute discipline." The Countess clapped her hands. "Aristide, Aristide!" She touched the transceiver concealed in her hair, but there was no response that Michaelis could detect. Her expression changed abruptly from childish delight to infant fury. "Where is that lousy rustic?" Michaelis, boiling, shouldered his way into Egverty's line of sight with difficulty. "So what the hell do you think you're doing?" he said in a harsh voice. "Good evening, Mike. I am attending a party, just as you are." "Good evening, dear Lou." "Countess, do you know my foster parents? But I'm sure you do." "Of course," the Countess said, turning her bare shoulders and back unmistakably on Michaelis and Lou, and looking up at Egverty's perpetually grinning head from under gilded eyelids. "Let's go next door. There's more room, and it will be quieter. We've all seen enough of these train riders. After you, their arrival will seem all alike." So yeah, it's very much about kind of humanity's obsession with a unique personality that is imported to Earth, and then kind of their ability to lead the masses, and what kind of the idea of, you know, a correct kind of leadership would be to us won't be to them. So our man from Mars and Stranger from a Strange Land has these interesting ideas about human, you know, love and kind of an existence, whereas, you know, this dinosaur-like man from this other planet has kind of similar ideas, and then, you know, how humanity kind of deals with that. And in Stranger in a Strange Land, and there are spoilers for that kind of right now, the idea is that a group of people decide to found a faith that incorporates these ideas to make them, to kind of integrate them into human society. The idea of a case of conscience is that such a thing in this case though attempted by some, becomes problematic because of the values it represents. And then how that is dealt with by this priest that the book focuses on. And it's startling. It's very startling where it goes. And the idea and it's a thing that I actually believe is kind of underexplored in science fiction, about how dangerous the idea of a completely divergent entity, like how dangerous that could be to humanity. The idea that, you know, we have value systems that are based in where we are and what we are, and that suddenly, you know, something from a completely alien society would look at those things and go, those things don't make sense. Because objectively, you know, those things are based in things like our biology and our environment, and when you take those things away, what kind of morality and kind of, you know, societal values would an alien species have? And the answer is they would have alien ones based on their environment and their biology and their culture and their history. And yeah, and so, like, A Case of Conscience does a really good job. Is it dated? It is. It is a bit dated. It does read like a 50s science fiction novel, but so does some Highland stuff. I mean, is it good? Yes. It is absolutely good. It's a very good, but you will notice there are things. The idea of shining a spotlight on society's kind of excesses with science fiction is a thing that Stranger in a Strange Land, this novel, and Stand on Zanzibar do amazingly well. Like, paint you a future picture of people kind of using technology and to be kind of more debaucherous, like 17th century France levels of, I guess it would be 18th century France, 18th century French levels, kind of like, you know, just these kind of like Marquis de Sade characters that are just, you know, the heads of social groups, and then being kind of like shining this, you know, look at what we're capable of as humans. It's not so great either. It's done well here. And those three novels that I mentioned, Stand on Zanzibar, Stranger in a Strange Land, and Case of Conscience, all do kind of belong together in kind of this great tradition in science fiction of highlighting humanity at its worst in a way, like through the eyes of somebody else. Although Stand on Zanzibar doesn't have some sort of alien centerpiece, Stand on Zanzibar just shows you how bad the future can be. Like, and yeah, it's nice to read this and know that we haven't turned into this quite yet. But it is, yeah, I like this. When you read something like The Big Time and then you read this, you go, this all day. Like, all day. This is the best of what the 50s was going to produce. And, like, beautiful. And out of the 50s list, this might actually be kind of the best thing I've read. So, yeah, way ahead of its time. Obviously, you're going to get echoes of this in later novels. Like I said, Stand on Zanzibar, Stranger in a Strange Land, both of which are amazing novels. This also, yeah, it reads well. And I would argue that the reason I've encountered its kind of title and its author in other works of science fiction is because this is a very influential, foundational piece of work. So, yeah, I would strongly suggest it. I really liked it. I'm glad this list forced me to read it, because I wouldn't have read it otherwise. So, yeah, won the Hugo Award, and influenced other Hugo Award winners, which is like winning more Hugo Awards than one. I don't know if that is true, but... So, yeah, so that's this, and when we come back, another Hugo Award winner. Bye, everybody.